So as I said, we're gonna cover the Alabama Auburn game. It's gonna be happening on Saturday at around 1:30. The game has actually changed from 3 to 1:30. So Saturday, just after lunch, Alabama will head to Auburn Arena to take on Auburn. Auburn, the number one team in the country. Both teams now coming off a loss. Auburn to Texas A&M on the road, Alabama at home to Florida. Both teams lost in ways where they just got punked on the rebounds. Auburn's major issue was they just couldn't keep Texas A&M off the glass. Alabama's main issue in that game was they could not keep Florida off the glass. So this is a game which I expect that both teams will be stressing the importance of the rebound. I think both teams will be stressing the importance of not letting the other team get momentum, especially from Alabama's standpoint. If Alabama wants to beat Auburn in Auburn, you're going to have to make sure they do not get a run going and get the crowd into it. The bigger the run, the bigger they get their crowd into it, the better it is, right? The teams that have had success in Auburn Stadium, and Florida being one of the main ones, were able to kind of take the crowd out of it early. And that allowed them to do well in that stadium. It is not an easy place to play. I do not expect it to be an easy place to play. Honestly, if Alabama does not play their A game, I would expect Auburn to win this game. I know I'm saying the prediction a little early, but if Alabama does not play its A game, Auburn will win this game. The home court advantage and what they have going for them is something that I fully expect them to take advantage of and be able to play off of that atmosphere. But let's talk about what happened in the first game, and then, it should give us some ideas as to what Alabama could do to be successful in this game. First things first, Alabama has to get out to some of the shooters. They let Miles Kelly get started early from three. They let Denver Jones get started early from three. Chaney Johnson, Chad Baker Mazzara, all these guys shot over 50%. Jani Broome hits two 3-pointers, right? At times, there were guys that Alabama was just sagging off of and letting them take the shot. In Auburn's arena, I don't know if that's the best idea, because if they hit that shot, it's going to get the crowd into it. I understand the idea of sagging off of shooters that are not as good, and there are some which, of course, it makes sense, but I do think that is something that Alabama's going to have to do very carefully, because, again, if that shot is made in the arena, it's something that will get their crowd into it, and it's something that I don't know if that's something you can fully afford. A place where Alabama was super successful in the first game was on the offensive rebounds. Alabama doubled them up on the offensive rebounds, 14-7. It's a place where Alabama will have to be a lead again. Grant Nelson was huge in the first game. Cliff Omori was huge in the first game. You got to have big games out of both of those guys. When you're going against Jani Broome and Dylan Cardwell, you have to have big games out of your front court. If Aiden Sherrill is able to play post his injury, which you saw in the little banged up that he got in this game. I don't know the extent of it, but if he's able to play, you're going to want him to play. He did not play in the first matchup. I think that you could really use him in this next matchup. I think he could honestly be a little bit of an X factor down low, since you did not see him in that first matchup. He's somebody that I think that at times Alabama could play and give you a little bit something extra down low, especially if Grant or Cliff are not playing at the level that they did in that first game. They both were awesome on the rebounds in the first game, but we don't know what we will see in this game. The other thing is Alabama, obviously just needs to make shots. In the first game, Alabama had some shots and just missed them. Alabama shot 5 of 26 from three. Mark Sears goes 2 of 11. Aiden Holloway goes 1 of 4. Jaron Stevenson 1 of 3. Chris Youngblood 1 of 3. Everyone else went 0 of 1. And it was a huge issue in the game, right? Auburn does not give up a ton of assists. Matter of fact, Alabama had just 9 to Auburn's 13. But a lot of that had to do with the fact that Alabama just missed shots. And shots that Alabama does not always miss, right? That is something that Alabama will have to take advantage of in this game. If Auburn gives you a shot, you have to make it, right? Similar to in the Florida game where Alabama, had missed a few shots that were open, you just can't miss an open shot against Auburn. This is the number one team in the country for a reason. If you're missing open shots, you're going to lose the game. It's that simple, right? Another thing that I think that Alabama needs to pay attention to is in the first game, Auburn did a great job dictating what they wanted to do with the ball. And what I mean by that is Auburn was able to get into all their sets, and it didn't really feel like Alabama did a lot on the defensive end to stop Auburn from doing what they wanted to do, right? It felt like when Alabama hit the threes to take the lead, or to tie the game, I'm sorry, Alabama was really just beating missed shots with better offense. Alabama at times, and even in the first half of the Florida game, in the Tennessee game, Alabama at times has been able to sit down and defend. It's something that you're going to have to see in this game against Auburn if you want to win this game. Alabama is going to have to sit down and defend. Auburn is going to have their sets. They're going to, run them as best they can, and you're going to have to sit down and defend, not give a cheap bailout foul, and sit down and defend and make them beat you with a good shot. Because at times, guys like Tahad Pettiford or Chad Baker-Mazara are willing to put up some shots that are not super advised if it gets either late in the shot clock or they're feeling themselves. And so because of that, if you can, I don't want to say bait them into a bad shot, but sometimes they're willing to take an ill-advised shot because, they're feeling it or whatever. And I think that's what you're trying to do, right? You saw it some in the Texas A&M game against Auburn, where Tahad Pettiford was awesome. He had a lot of big threes, but there were also some threes that he just kind of chunked up, and even the announcers were like, hey, that's not a great shot. Chad Baker-Mazara, same way. Not a great shot, right? That's something that Alabama, I think, if they play the defense that they're capable of, is possible to do. If we play the defense that we played in the first game against Auburn, it's not going to happen, right? But with all of this being said, you still have to do what you did in game one. You have to rebound like you did in game one when you out-rebounded them on both ends of the floor. You have to not turn the ball over like you did in game one. I thought that Auburn game was really your first time that you showed that you had the ability to play a game against a tough opponent without turning over the basketball. Again, those are the kind of things that Alabama is going to have to do to win this game. There's some injury questions, right? What does Denver Jones look like? He did not play in the Texas A&M game. What does a guy like Aiden Sherrill, again, we mentioned Aiden Sherrill's name. What does he look like? It's also a coming home party of sorts for Aiden Holloway, right? A guy that played for Auburn last season, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of emotions, right? I think he matches up well against Auburn just because of the speed at which he has and the multi-guard lineups that Auburn likes to run. So I think he's going to get a lot of play time, especially if he's playing well. He played okay in the first game, but just wasn't hitting shots and turned over the ball a few times. So if he can not turn over the basketball and play within himself, I think that he's going to get some run in this game. And then I think the big one is the fact that Mark Sears is on a bit of a heater right now. He's had 5 games with over 20 points against top 25 opponents. And in that first game, he just was not himself. He had a couple of turnovers, had just 1 rebound, 2 of 11 from 3. Was not great. And I think that those are some things which I would expect for Alabama to, be able to try to get him going. This is another situation where Alabama changed up the starting lineup after that game and put LeBaron Philon in the starting lineup. I think that's also a difference maker because you have the LeBaron Philon running the point lineup where Mark Sears is getting more efficient shots, where you have the defender in LeBaron Philon to be able to go up against some of their lead guards, which he's done an incredible job of here recently. You still get the shot making from a guy like Chris Youngblood, and then when you bring Jaren in off the bench, you have Jaren shot making with Aiden Holloway and with Mark Sears, right? Like I think the lineup that you have with LeBaron Philon being in the starting lineup is just a much better lineup for what Alabama's trying to do. And again, that's not something that happened in the first game, but it's something that I would fully expect to happen in this one. I don't expect Nate to change that around at all. Obviously, that starting lineup has been working well for starts, so I would expect it to stay, right? So those are the things you have to look at. I do think that this is going to be a tough game. I've said it, and I've said it, and I've said it. I think Alabama has to do what they did well in the first game and clean up the things they didn't. And honestly, Alabama is going to have to play a B+ or better game. And and hope that Auburn doesn't play their A game, right? If Auburn plays their A game, Alabama needs an A to A plus game to win this game, right? These are two of the best teams in the country. Alabama's obviously lost some, but don't get me wrong. Alabama is still an elite team. They have had some injuries. They have had some setbacks, but I still firmly believe that Alabama can play with anybody in the country. However, this Auburn team at times can be on another level, right? And if Alabama turns over the basketball, or if Alabama allows Auburn to just dominate them on the glass, or if Alabama allows Auburn to, hit a big shot and get the crowd into it, followed up by a steal or something, right? Keep the crowd, keep the energy of Auburn's team, because they are a very hot-headed team. Guys like Chad Baker-Mazara, Janai Broome, these are pretty hot-headed guys that play with a lot of emotion. If you get to where they're playing, loose and free and they're, up, this is a team that is a very good front runner, right? If they're in the lead, they play super confident, and it's a team that can beat you and run you absolutely out of the gym. So Alabama, I think honestly is going to have to play a very good game to keep it close. And if Alabama plays poorly and Auburn plays well, Auburn will run you out of the gym. So, do I think Alabama can win this game? Yes. However, I would give it probably 75-25. Auburn wins this game. I am going to predict that Auburn wins the game. Not that I think that Alabama can't win it, because I do think Alabama is capable. I think that there are things on the film that happened in the first game which Alabama can clean up. And I think that there are things where Nate Oates, his second time playing a team, often is much better at, cleaning up some of those things. You saw it last season with like the Clemson game and some others. I think that Nate does a pretty good job cleaning up in the second game. I think that there were also some moments in that first game where Alabama, showed that they were capable of winning the game and just missed some shots. I don't think that Alabama's going to miss all of those shots in Auburn Arena. I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, Alabama has done fairly well shooting on the road. I think that they're going to be up for the big game. We have some guys that, play for the big moment, and I think that they're going to be ready for this game. But I do think that Auburn is probably going to win this game. I'm going to predict a slightly lower scoring game than the first one. I'm going to have this at an 88-84 Auburn victory. Actually, let's go 88-83. I do think that, like I said, I think that Auburn wins, but I do think that Alabama obviously has the ability. Would it shock me if Alabama wins this game? Not at all. If Alabama, does what I've said, if they play the way they played in the first game from a rebounding and lack of turnovers perspective and just hit some of the open shots that they missed in the first game, they'll win the game. However, when you see what Auburn is coming off of a loss, when you see that Alabama put out a terrible rebounding performance, that Alabama at times in this stretch has just not looked great, it does give me some cause for concern. So I am going to predict Auburn wins the game. Again, I would not be shocked if Alabama does win it, but I think my prediction is going to be that Auburn wins it. And if you are interested, I will break down this game. I will record it on Sunday. It'll come out Sunday evening. If you are interested in seeing that, I also will break down what the SEC tournament looks like and what Alabama's potential road is going to look like for the SEC tournament, as well as give my prediction for who I think the SEC tournament champion will be. So please subscribe to the channel if you're interested in that. That's going to come out on Sunday evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I do appreciate all the support on this, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.